Alrighty, good morning everybody. It is Thursday, August 18th, 2022, and we're going to get started here with our pre-market analysis. Hopefully everybody had a good yesterday afternoon and a good night. Let's jump right into things. Try to disregard what you see on the screen with all these lines. I'm currently working on a really powerful edge using market internals, and so there's a lot of markings from my back testing here. But let's go into review of yesterday morning. Remember at the open I had some technical difficulties, so I think the market opened right down over here. Started advancing higher and I was working on some technical difficulties, so I don't think we actually started looking at finding anything until about 6:40. And in that time, the market came right up to the VWAP. It broke it by 1 point on the ES here and then got this pullback. So that was a good trade had you have seen that set up there. And then the first thing I mentioned was trying a short off the VWAP on the second test and targeting right into the 200 moving average. And sure enough, held the VWAP with 2 ticks of risk and came down right to the 200. Got a little peek through it and then came back up. So we were able to get a little bit of profit, but did not quite follow through for that larger target. And then came up right to our minor eye level and basically held it to the tick and then broke through by 1 tick and failed. This up here, another perfect opportunity to get short. In fact, looking at all the stuff I'm working with right now, we got a golden alignment right there at the 42.85 level. So once I get this dialed in, I'll be able to give you that call when we're testing into a level, and then look what happened. Again, 1 tick of risk, then pushed down, I don't know, about 15, 16 points. From there, it was just tight and sideways. I think I urged everyone to be a little patient as the market kind of, oh, that's right. I forgot about that. So once 85 held, our first target to the downside was right into 63.5, right? So if you did get short there, or if you got short a little bit later, the target was right to 63.5. Sure enough, the market came right into 63.5 and held it with like 1 or 2 ticks of heat, and then came down, and of course they had to do the little peak below and bounce. And when it peaked right back into that level, that's where I got another golden confluence here. You can see that little yellow dot. That's what I'm using. That is really the best signal that I think I've ever found, as far as signals go. Got a nice bounce off of 63.5. And then there was no strength to the upside, so they had to bring it lower. Where did they bring it? Right to our major eye level. Again, breaking it by less than 2 points here, and then holding it within a few ticks on the second test. On the second test, we had our golden ratio, or our golden confluence, and then sure enough, pushed all the way to the low of the day before. Got another golden confluence, and then it pulled back. And then it bounced right off the 200 moving average, where we got another golden confluence. And from there, it just rode the 200 and got more bullish signals off of the 200 as it continued to push. We did get a little peek through there, and then made it all the way up to the high of the day. And the high of the day, hopefully I don't have to eat my words here, I think that was the high of the day, right into the back end of our next major eye level, 43.06. So it did fail just about 3 ticks in front, but when we came up into that area, a bunch of negative market internal data, and then a nice 3-minute bearish divergence, bam, right back down. And then from there, let's zoom out a little bit. This was the end of the day. We got the sell-off when we got our golden confluence. That was the major turn right at our major eye level. And then we came down and rode the back end of the 200 multiple times. In fact, a beautiful opportunity to try it short here when all the market internals started giving us bearish clues. And then that was the end of the day. Now at the end of the day, we got another golden confluence basically a few minutes before that extended hours at the end of the day. And then sure enough, in the overnight session here, from that signal, we then pulled back another 20, 21, 22 points. So it's just unbelievable. The levels, the confluences of signals, everything is really lining up beautifully here. So this is where we find ourselves this morning. We're in this little pullback, essentially trading within all of yesterday's price action. pretty choppy looking with a trend to the downside. So let's go ahead and jump up to the daily so we can look at whatever potential signals are there, and then we'll get into the shorter time frames and start looking at the levels that we want to target here this morning. So I'm going to bring up the daily and just see if the daily is giving us any clues from a signal perspective. And the only thing that I see on the chart is the bullish divergences we got back on, August 9th. So when we came in on the 10th, the idea was there was an expectation, especially with some 4-hour and hourly bullish signals, for there to be an attempt to break out to the upside. And ever since then, we have continued to push here. However, at the top of this move, we don't have any signals right now. So on the daily chart, outside of the bullish signals that led to this follow through to the upside, there's really nothing else from that perspective. So right now, I mean, obviously a little bit of an ambivalent doji right there. I mean, maybe not the perfect, but it came up, closed right in the middle with our wicks on equidistant on either side. So, not necessarily a strong signal on this daily chart. All right, so let's go ahead. We'll look at the 4-hour. This is what I usually do when our daily has nothing as far as a signal with our divergences. I then have to rely on this 4-hour, right? And on the 4-hour, you can see we got a nice bearish divergence from not yesterday's high, but 2 days ago. And then in the overnight session yesterday, another bearish signal. We pulled back yesterday, right? We did trend lower. And then on the lows of yesterday and on the overnight lows right now, we do have some bullish divergences from the 4-hour. So the question this morning is going to be, and I think that the 60-minute also has the same bullish signals. Yes, they do. The question this morning is going to be, do the bulls have enough strength to hold these signals and hold this level here and go ahead and attempt to come up and break out above the high of yesterday? So that is one potential scenario. It might not be a straight line. It might be messy. But the first question we have this morning is, can the bulls hold the overnight lows and the low of yesterday to go ahead and come back up, get through some of these potential resistance areas, and push through the high, not of really yesterday, but the day before, and then we're off to the races back up. That's one scenario. One other basic scenario, remember, there's a million possible things the market can do, but what we're looking at here is if there's not enough strength to break out, and we end up failing and getting through the low of yesterday, then we're looking at targeting shorts down into some of these levels down below us. So we'll talk about the levels we have down here. We'll talk about the targets we would have up above us if the market breaks out through not only yesterday's high, but more importantly, the high of the day before that. And then we'll talk about the levels all in between within basically yesterday's range. So let's go down to the 60-minute and take a look at the levels that we want to be aware of this morning. So right up in yesterday's price action, there is a lot of stuff here, but let's zoom in. No, it might look a little messy here, but essentially what we have is the major high of the last few months all the way down to the low we made here in the overnight session. You can see there's trouble right now right at the 50% retracement of this push down, which also happens to be that major swing low that we marked yesterday morning. So nice confluence right there and a nice obvious failure right off that area. The next area, if we continue to push from where we are right now, would be a potential resistance right around the 61.8 retracement at 99.75. So if the bulls do get through this overnight high, the first potential resistance spot is going to be right there at just about 4,300. A little bit further, you never know what's going to happen at the major eye level. And just like I told you in yesterday's pre-market, we do have a whole bunch of chop right in here, right around basically 4,300 to 4,312. A little messy area there. So ideally, if they do get up through the 61.8 retracement, we would like to see them get through that pocket there. And if they do get through the high of yesterday and get through the high of 2 days ago and the major eye level, which interestingly is right where they peaked through and failed, then we have all these levels up above that everyone should be aware of, except I think Vlad, since you're brand new, all the levels that are up above us here are levels that we've already had on the chart and talked about for probably months now because we haven't made it up here yet. So if you don't know what these levels are and they just keep going, we do have, if you go down to the eye levels channel just below the trading pit, I have all the levels listed out. So up above us, we've got all the major minor eye levels that I've talked about for months. And then we have that major retracement, 43.58, 43.59 right there. That is the 61.8 retracement of basically the sell-off from the all-time high down to the lows that we made I think a month or two ago, 36.39. So from the all-time high to the low of the year, the 61.8 retracement, if I zoom back up in here, is right up here at 43.58 to 59. So all the levels up above are the same, like I've been saying here. And then if the market does end up breaking lower, there's some levels in here in the most immediate area right now that would make sense for a potential hold or a bounce. And that would be this little resistance that we created here in the overnight session right around 74 to 75, give or take a few ticks there. And then there's an area, let me go down to my 10-minute chart just to confirm. I believe it's 69 to 70. So right around 69 to 71, right around that orange power level, would be another little area that would make sense as a potential hold here if the bears do get this to pull back a little bit. So those are two little areas that would make sense. And then we're down to this major swing level that seems to have been working out beautifully, 42.63 half. So we've got three little areas here that would make sense for a hold on the pullback on this specific leg. And then from there, remember I said if we can't hold above the low of yesterday, which is our green line down here, then we're going to be targeting to the major retracement at 45 half. And all the levels down below us here are all the levels we talked about yesterday. And probably on most of these levels we've talked about for a few days or a few weeks. So again, for Vlad, since you're brand new, I'm sorry, I'm not going to sit here and list everyone out, but we do have them listed in the eye levels area of our server here. So coming down through the low of yesterday, I'd be targeting at least at first down into 42.45, 42.46. And then we have our major and minor eye levels as strong support levels. And then the other two major retracements, which we talked about yesterday. So basically everything below us is the same as yesterday, and everything above us is the same as yesterday. The only difference is right inside the previous daily range here, this pocket, we do have a bunch of little areas that would make sense as potential support and resistances. And then remember that the close of, it looks like we're opening right around the close of yesterday, so there might not be a gap. So I think that basically wraps it up this morning. We do have a decent argument for the bulls from yesterday's low, but today is almost like yesterday where we don't necessarily have a really, really strong alignment. Typically, that's when we get our daily signal lining up with our 4-hour that also agrees with the 60-minute. And right now we're missing that daily signal. So right now we have a 4-hour and 60-minute argument for the bulls off the lows of yesterday, and a 4-hour and 60-minute bearish signal from the highs of maybe not necessarily yesterday, but the day before that major high, right? So it's basically any direction really goes here. We don't have an expectation one way or the other. The main thing we're going to want to see, obviously, is a breakout through the low of yesterday or a breakout through the high of Tuesday and through that major eye level. So until that happens, and it's anyone's guess here. Obviously, once the market opens, we're going to be looking at our market internals, and that should give us an even better clue as to what we could expect to happen here this morning. And outside of that, I don't think there's much else to mention here. We do have news at 7 a.m. So I do have marked on my 1 minute and my 3 minute here. When we get to 7 a.m., there's a potential for the order book for the dome to jump around a little bit. So we always want to be aware of the news. So we have existing home sales and some other minor things that will be dropping right there at 7 a.m. So be aware of that once we get over to that time. So that's it to everyone out watching on YouTube. Have a great morning. We will see you tomorrow.